There are 5 things that every successful leader does at work that makes people think they're the best leader they've ever had. These actions or skills help them to develop trust with their team, help their team to want to follow them, and as a byproduct, get the recognition they deserve from their boss. What are the 5 things that every successful leader does? Well, it starts with having great communication skills. Communication is such an important part of leadership. It's so important that if you don't at least have good communication skills, you might not even get a chance to be a leader. Because it's through your communication that you bring others into your thought process. It's how you impart your knowledge and your competence with your team and with other higher ups. It's also how they know how brilliant and deserving you are of a promotion. So when I say great communication skills, what do I exactly mean by that? Well, it's difficult to answer because in leadership, there are so many different types and methods of communication that you'll need to use. But to narrow it down for you and to steer you in the right direction so you know what to focus on when you want to improve your communication, I would recommend focusing on 3 things. First, confident communication. Confident communication is all about having self-assurance when you speak, about having a strong belief in your opinions and the facts that you share, and having very little or no uncertainty about what you're saying. It's leaders who are confident communicators that you pay attention to because they just have so much certainty and authority when they speak. You are naturally drawn into and sometimes mesmerized by what they're saying. Number 2, articulate communication. Articulate communication is where you correctly articulate speech sounds and you precisely and accurately put your thoughts into words. When great leaders know how to do these 2 things, it eliminates a lot of the confusion and uncertainty that can come up when a lot of people communicate. And more importantly, it helps the listener to fully understand what you're saying because at the end of the day, that is why we communicate. So the listener or the other person can fully grasp our thoughts. Number 3, asking the right questions. Asking the right questions is something I'm currently discovering and improving on myself in this book, Questions Are the Answer by Hal Gregerson. And I've found that asking the right questions is so important because it not only helps you to get better answers, it also helps you to break down barriers to thinking that might have prevented you or your team from finding solutions to problems. And when we think about it, leaders spend a lot of time solving problems. So it's in our best interest to do all that we can to help us solve those problems faster and better. I'm not finished reading this book yet, but I am getting a lot of tips and insights from it. I'm making a lot of highlights within the book, and I am putting those highlights into the Readwise app because that actually allows you to take pictures of the highlights that you make and upload those pictures, those photos to the Readwise app, which is really great when you read physical books. If you want to check out this book for yourself, I will put an Amazon affiliate link in the description below. I will also put a link to the Readwise app if you want to check that out and start taking digital notes yourself when you read your physical books or also when you read your digital books. As important as communication is for leaders, you also need to make a conscious effort to let other people communicate too. And during this time, it's really important that you listen and that you respect the ideas and the input of those people. Some leaders, not all leaders, but some leaders can develop hubris when they are promoted into leadership. The pride and glory of finally becoming a leader can make them develop a little bit too much self-confidence and a lot of arrogance. This hubris often prevents the leader from recognizing that their team has anything valuable to contribute. It causes them to ignore or to reject whatever their team has to say, which naturally leads people, their team, to never share or to contribute anything anymore. But you won't find this pattern in successful leaders. Instead, what you will find is a successful leader will actively ask people in their team to contribute their ideas, their thoughts, and their suggestions. And if people hold back, the successful leader will make it known that they want to hear what people think in an attempt to encourage people to talk and to share their ideas. They will listen with curiosity and interest to really understand what that person is saying. They won't cut them off and they won't stop them from talking so they can talk instead. Even if their ideas differ from what the leader, from what other people think, they will still respect that person's thoughts because they know that the mere act of sharing your thoughts is a vulnerable process. Successful leaders understand that straightforward delegation isn't enough to make a great leader. Instead, Instead, they will delegate tasks or processes to people in their team, allowing that person to take ownership over that task or that process. Straightforward delegation is where you would ask a team member to send client X an email to organize a meeting for next Tuesday. There is clear instruction on what that person should do, and this type of delegation is really useful for day-to-day tasks, or especially if people are new to the team. But sometimes you might want to use a different form of delegation, a form of delegation that is a bit more empowering. For example, you might ask a team member to make a presentation for client X to explain how you or how the company are going to achieve the results that they want. And you give maximum freedom to that team member to create the presentation exactly how they want, so they can decide what topics to cover and what to include in the presentation. All you really give them is the end result that you're after. This empowering type of delegation works really well with people who are more experienced, more confident, or who prefer to work with more independence. And it can result in incredible benefits to the team because you give people ownership over that task. They feel you trust them with this task, so as a result, they feel responsible for achieving the results that you want. And it's this combination of ownership, of trust, of responsibility that creates greater employee engagement and more satisfaction at work too. Another thing successful leaders do is they are proactive in solving problems. They don't shy away from problems at work or even complicated problems because they're just a little bit too overwhelming. They're not scared to tackle them whether they have the skill set or not. They approach that problem with a curious and a determined mindset. Some leaders, usually the successful ones, have some knowledge about framework thinking, and they use framework thinking to work through the problem and to seek out the best solution. Framework thinking is a whole other topic that I could dedicate a whole video to. If you want me to create a video on framework thinking, let me know in the comments below. An article in Forbes says that problem solving is the essence of what leaders exist to do. And it goes on to say that problems can crop up anywhere. Problems can crop up within the team. Think of people's egos and dealing with that when people are self-promoting or if there are disagreements with people in the team. Problems can crop up with competitors as well. Let's say they launch a new competing product. Maybe they steal your clients, or maybe they are developing a new strategy. Problems can crop up within the company as well. So think of lack of resources, lack of budget, or lack of communication. I'd also add that community and government can also add problems that leaders might need to deal with from time to time. But as Karl Popper once stated, the best leaders are the best problem solvers. They have the patience to step back and see the problem at hand through broadened observation, circular vision. They see around, beneath, and beyond the problem itself. They see well beyond the obvious. The most effective leaders approach problems through a lens of opportunity. And the lens of opportunity, or the glass half full, is a key approach that you need to have as a leader, especially when you are solving problems. No matter how difficult or impossible that problem seems to appear at the time. But on top of everything I have talked about in this video, there is one overarching thing that every successful leader does, and that is to lead with integrity. Integrity is adherence to moral or ethical principles, soundness of moral character, honesty, according to dictionary.com. And these things are imperative, critical, if not vital in leadership. Imagine a leader who makes an immoral decision like purchasing a really expensive leather couch that's supposed to be for the leader's office but ends up in the leader's home instead. Or a leader who promises a team member that in 6 months' time they'll be promoted to sales manager, only for that employee to discover in 6 months' time that job has gone to the leader's niece instead. Immoral or dishonest action can crop up in a variety of ways. Sometimes it's really obvious that that leader is doing something that is immoral or dishonest. Other times it's in a bit of a gray area, and the leader might rationalize that their action is the right action when in fact many other people around them see it as wrong. To ensure that you lead with integrity, it's always a good idea to have a set of principles that you lead by. For example, I will reply to all emails within 24 hours, or if I disagree with somebody, I will voice it. It's also a good idea that you stay consistent with those principles, because this is the only way you're going to teach other people what your principles are, through your behavior and through your actions, and through by staying consistent with your behavior and your actions too. Over the next week at work, I encourage you to use your interactions with people in your team to flag 3 to 5 principles that you lead by. It could be the way you interact with them. It could be the way that you communicate with them too. but 3 to 5 principles, that is what you want to identify to ensure that you lead with integrity. All of what I talked about in this video is based on the idea that you have a strong leadership mindset, because you can have all the leadership skills that you want. You can do all of the things that I suggested in this video. But if you don't have the right mindset as a leader, then it will be much harder for you to make that transition to being a successful leader. So I recommend you to watch this video here where I go through 7 common leadership mindset blocks. If you don't have time to watch it right now, then save it to your watch later list on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next week in another video.